Blue Wave! We are filtering the beach microplastics. This particular site catches extreme high density of microplastic, and those are the sites that we like to work on with our static charge filtration screens. And we take the surface layer, skim the surface layer, place the sand and the debris, plastic into the screen. We're taking a very thin layer off the surface. All the plastics are at the surface. There's nothing in the wet sand. We try to stay absolutely out of the wet sand. Nothing falls into the wet sand. And then we come back with a backward swipe. And if there's anything left, it'll come to the surface with that backward swipe. So we make sure that as we move forward, we have collected at least 95% of the plastics or better. So there's my clean swipe. One more piece. And we move forward. Take another clean swipe. Looks good. I like to be real meticulous about this. We don't move at super high speed because it moves fairly fast as it is anyway. And we try and make sure we get everything like that. You can see the rack line, it's packed with microplastics, and we turn it into pristine, clean sand and leave the beach in a much, much better state. You're only taking the top layer, so you're not digging down into the wet sand at all. Take the top few centimeters. Then we get our nice little beach workout.
What is it?
Devin? This is Devin Nicola. And the sand will start working itself through the screen. And then we give it an easy rolling motion up and down together. If it starts getting towards the end of the screen, you just flick it back and you roll the screen. And we create a pristine sand. It's not a real complicated process. There's little techniques like that make it more efficient and easier. You don't want to dig real deep in the sand. That's a lot of work. You're just skimming the surface and you're collecting all the plastics. See what we got. Well, there's thousands of pieces of microplastic and probably enough to kill at least a few seabirds in each screen. We don't worry too much about the organic debris. We'll throw some of it out, but we'll take the organic debris too. It doesn't hurt the environment for us to remove some of this detritus and wood chips and things that have been embedded with the toxic plastic. Then we purse the screen together. Close the end, and it goes into a 5-gallon bucket. This keeps any debris from being blown by the wind as it goes into the bucket. And we've captured it. And then we just move forward a meter, approximately. Styrofoam flake. This is what styrofoam looks like after it's been compressed in the ocean. They're just these light little flakes, and you know, absolutely impossible to ever remove something like that by hand. But the filtration screen, yes, you see how oh, there it goes. Whoop. You can almost not even catch it by hand, even with the slightest wind, but that's what your coffee cup ends up as. Each individual cell smashed flat in the environment. A good load, it's around a maximum load, is a couple of shovels wide. The screens, you want them to last, because we can run thousands of screen loads. If we take care of our screen, we can run the thousands of loads through the screen before it deteriorates. And you can see that static charge. The screen's starting to build up. It's a very low electrostatic charge. It's like rubbing a comb on your head. But we found that will bond particles the size of the sand that you can't even see in the beach. And we'll collect those in our samples, which was pretty amazing. We didn't expect that. But we are actually pulling 15 to 50 micron particles the size of the sand when we're doing this, of plastic. And there's a lot more of that than we actually realized until we started running these filtration screens. I always set the screen across the rack line.
Could you set that again, that last part?
I always set the screen parallel with the water and the back beach. So you're straddling the rack line. 90% of the plastic is in these rack lines where the high tide stops. So you can see the rack line work its way down the beach. If you straddle the rack line, it's much more efficient to load it into the screen, because outside the rack line is a very small percentage of any material. Like I said, 90% of the material is always confined in these rack lines or up against the back beach, which is another rack line. It's nice to have 3 people per screen, 2 people loading the rack line in the front, and then you have one other person picking off anything you might have missed, the stuff that's on the peripheral areas where it's not as concentrated, and you have someone picking off all of those little pieces while you're loading the rack line. And that makes it more of an efficient cleanup for a larger area.
Sea turtles forever! Blue wave!